Hi, Regina.
Hi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am good. And how about you?
Very well, very well. Thanks. I will enable screen sharing for you to share.
I'm quickly.
I have a little bit of background noise occasionally. We have a building site and it's still not finished, so I want to use my mic now that I have it again.
Brilliant, brilliant. Dr. Goba. Dr. Goba, how are you? If you are muted, if you are speaking.
Hello, Doc. How are you?
Hey, mother, good to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You've made this session. You've made this session a very interesting and special one by your presence here.
Thank you. Most appreciated.
Great. How is Zimbabwe? How is Mr. Goba and family?
Zimbabwe is very, very cold. I think it's the coldest winter I've had for years.
Yeah.
And Mr. Goba is doing fine. We are working from home because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
No, that's brilliant.
and
Who's back?
Thank you.
Yeah. No,
I see we've got Regina there. How is Regina? Hi, Regina.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. And yourself? I heard about your country already, but yourself, how are you doing?
Fine. I'm fine. I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. You're a bit busy, but yeah, I can't complain.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Dr. Goba was my study mate when we were doing PhD. So we used to travel together from Zimbabwe to Zambia all the time.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Warming up old memories.
Yeah. And I see Elvin Abude, Philippines. How are you?
My God. How are you sila sa akin? I'm good. Pinadedma ko lang
Very
sila.
well. Good to have you. Thank you so much for supporting Samantha here. And Tsitsi.
Hi, Doc.
Good. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
How are you, everybody? Regina?
Good. Hello, Tsitsi.
Great.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, Elvin.
I can't wait to see Samantha.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
But I'm really happy. I always watch your session because it's interesting, and coming from a manager, working as a manager, it is very insightful on my end. I would love to join you guys, but you know.
No, definitely. We would love to have you as well in our sessions. So Samantha will reach out to you about that.
This is Samantha.
Yeah, you are in the Philippines?
Hello, Dr. Nathan. Hello, Mr. Gita.
Hi, Samantha.
Hey, Samantha.
How are you?
Good. Hello.
So I just tested the screen sharing without really going into it, but it seems to be working. So.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Yes. So welcome everyone. We just wait for our time, and Dr. Christine as the other guest. I see Mr. Patrick is here. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes,
Hello,
it's
Mr.
morning.
Patrick. Good morning.
It's almost evening here. It's morning that side.
Good afternoon.
Oh, that's true.
Morning,
Wait,
too.
good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
That's better, Patrick.
Yeah. For you, it's 6 a.m. Huh?
Yes, it's nice and early and crisp and beautiful.
Uh-huh. For Philippines, it's late now. It's a bit late now.
Nearly 9 o'clock in the Philippines, Dr. Yes.
9 p.m. Yes.
Deep in the evening.
Yes.
We're global.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I do LinkedIn Lives now every Tuesday, and we're also, it's at 10, so it's also like we had a guest from Malaysia the other day, and of course it was 10 p.m. So it's always hard to find the best time for everybody, but
Yeah.
somehow it works.
It works. It works.
Regina, I've seen you speak before. Where do you sit in the
I'm
world?
usually in New York City. I'm based in New York City. I'm currently in Florida, and I'm pretty much a nomad. So yeah, I've been traveling a little less since November, but before, yeah, I was traveling on several continents. All my Africa travel last year and Hawaii and London, whatnot, was canceled. So I chose some different destinations instead.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to go back to Africa at the end of the year or towards the end of the year. So we'll see how it goes. There are
Excellent.
different timelines playing out, right? So we'll see which one is first.
It's a challenge to travel these days, I know.
Yeah, I try to escape any type of, any type of restrictions and testing. So
That's difficult.
far it's worked.
Hey, well, it's good to be here. It's good to be alive.
Yes. We had a total of 180 registrants.
Mhm.
And so we're expecting quite a number, God willing. But it's time now. Dr. Christine, welcome.
Thank you so much. How is everyone?
Very, very well. Thank you.
Hello,
Christine.
Dr. Christine.
Good. Hello.
to see
How
How
are
are
you?
you?
I'm
Hello.
fine, thank you. Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I've seen you a number of times, but it's good to be on the same panel today.
Excellent. Yes, so true.
Yeah.
Dr. Christine, how are you? It's a villa.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. I'm not showing my face. Don't ask me why.
This is my former student. Is it working from home and then you end up putting a chitambala on the head?
Exactly.
Yeah. It has become the norm now. I'm going live on Facebook as we wait 1 minute and then we start because of our time.
Well, I'm just waking up.
Yes.
But it's good, Dr. Christine, that you're not in the blankets. So the husband is fine.
I've got the blanket down here with me, and I'm telling my husband I should do what Zimbabweans
Dr. Justin.
and Africans do. Just do the
Dr.
blanket.
Justin, before you go live, let me go
I'm live already.
something.
You can go ahead.
Before you go live, I want to complain something.
We are already live. You can go ahead.
How come now? How come? Oh, you already. How come you have so many when I'm not there? It's a good number. That is very good.
Since will answer that question. Since will answer that question.
I think it's No, all the best, please. All the best, everyone.
Yes, yeah.
For listening. Thanks.
Yeah, some people will always listen to the recording as well when it's ready.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so because of our time, thank you so much. Others will join in as we proceed with the session. We run these sessions in 60 minutes, and we'll try to maximize as much as possible from those 60 minutes conversation. Our main aim as UNICAF University in Zambia, Transform Your Performance and Center for Organization Leadership and Development is to create a platform for knowledge exchange and to expand our reach beyond the countries where we are established to actually reach the global platform. So the reframing corporate perspectives is designed as a model to engage in conversations that are really transformational, to evoke curiosity, imagination, enlightenment in the way that we engage people in organizations and build organizations for the 21st century. We really look forward to the conversations facilitating socioeconomic transformation in different countries across the globe as a global community, and to build strong networks as we engage in these conversations. So we really want a situation where this network becomes rich in terms of the interactions that we have. Philippines, Canada, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and the other countries. You can indicate in the chat box the countries where you are joining us from as a way of demonstrating the richness that, that we are trying to build. So I welcome you to this special edition. This is the first of our second edition, focusing on humanizing the workplace. And the panel of experts we have here are going to explore that conversation facilitated by Samantha Sales as we try to discuss approaches to leading organizations in the 21st century. I will not waste much time and hand over to Samantha to take us through today's proceedings. And may I request that we put our microphones on mute unless and until we are asked to make a contribution. For now, we will have the panelists with their microphones on, and Samantha will be facilitating that. Thank you so much. Over to you, Samantha.
Thank you, Dr. Justin. One second, let me just share my screen. Thank you again, Dr. Justin. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the fourth session in the Reframing Corporate Perspective series, but our first session on humanizing the workplace. My name is Samantha Nadine Abuda Salas, and I am privileged to be your anchor for today. To talk about the topic of humanizing the workplace, we are fortunate to be joined by three distinguished panel members. Our first panelist is Ms. Regina Huba, who is the founder and CEO of Transform Your Performance. She is a multicultural and multilingual transformational leadership coach, as well as an international inspirational speaker currently based in New York and originally from Germany. Her portfolio is very diverse as she has experience on 5 continents. An example is her incorporated management position at BCG and businesses in Argentina, Brazil, and the United States. Ms. Regina is the author of multiple works, such as the book Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine, which you can easily get on Amazon, as well as a leadership-focused white paper, her signature framework, Powerful Leadership Transformation, or PLT, and the Humanizing the Workplace approach. Her experience is unsurmountable as she plays many roles, such as being a conversational intelligence advanced skills practitioner, a thought leader at WIN or Women's Information Network, an expert contributor at SheSource, and a member of an advisory board of a Nigeria-based foundation, and of course, many, many more. You may stay updated on her work and events on either www.transformyourperformance.com or www.followergina.com. Our second panelist for today is Mr. Patrick Trottier. Mr. Patrick is the founder and director of the Institute of Emergent Organizational Development and Emergent Change. He is currently in his 41st year of private practice as an applied practitioner in the fundamentals of OD and emergent OD, focusing specifically on culture and creating human-centered, healthy, and performance-based organizations. His career has been varied and eclectic, with experiences with every type of organization from sectors such as healthcare, finance, power and energy, military, to state and federal ministries, all the way to street gangs. Of course, this is just to name a few, and you may see the complete list on his LinkedIn page. He learned about dehumanizing organizations at the early age of 16 while working on car factory assembly lines, steel forging plants, salt mines, trucking, construction, and doing other labor-intensive work. He claims that experiences during this period serves as his best education. Mr. Patrick calls himself an in-the-trenches practitioner, as he learned a lot of what really works directly from his clients. He's honored to be part of an associative collaborative partnership with the Center of Organization and Leadership Development, COLD, with Dr. Justin and Dr. Dotun. And to complete our panel for today, we have Dr. Christine Mushibwe-Firi, who is the current Vice Chancellor of UNICAF University, Zambia, in a country with 54 private universities. She's the only female vice chancellor. Dr. Christine founded an NGO called Training Teachers for Community Schools in Zambia, or TTCSZ, with the help of former lecturers and supervisors and her husband. She is also a co-founder of a business college called Lusaka Open Business College. And Dr. Christine, of course, holds an esteemed record in academic and institutional leadership, as she has served in leadership positions in multiple institutions. Dr. Christine is a passionate educationist and an experienced HR professional and consultant. Her areas of focus are the fields of leadership and organization effectiveness, female education, and Zambian traditions that affect the progression of women in education. She has been awarded accolades such as Africa's most influential woman in business and government, as well as GARA or GARA's Award of Excellence for Global Leaders. Dr. Christine is also the author of 6 books, 3 of which are still in the process of publication, and she puts in an effort to collaborate and co-author with her daughters. And she is also a proud member of Organization Leadership and Development Network. So before we begin with our discussion, I'd like to give the floor to our panelists for them to be able to briefly greet the audience before we begin. Ms. Regina?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good what else is left of the day to everybody in the world, wherever you're watching from today. You are most welcome, and I really look forward to this conversation. It's very deep to my heart, and I know I have some amazing co-panelists and that will have a wonderful exchange. Thank you, Samantha, for this lovely introduction.
Thank you, Ms. Regina. Mr. Patrick, over to you.
Well, I'm just honored to be here today amongst Regina and Christine and everybody that really wants to make this a better world, a better place to work and to live in. I've been involved in humanistic psychology since the 60s. That brought me into a choice of working with organizations and where people make where they work and just trying to make a difference. I'm glad to be here. I will learn and hopefully I can bring something to the conversation.
We are also glad and honored to have you here, Mr. Patrick. Thank you. Dr. Christine.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for those accolades received. I just want to make one correction that I'm the only vice chancellor among private universities. That's about 54 private universities. Thank you so much. I'm sure we are going to have a very good time today. It's very impressive to learn that Patrick was at about 16, is it 16 years? When he learned about dehumanizing workplaces. For me, my experience started when I was teaching research, consultants and research at University of Lusaka. And then I came across an article that had been written by Liz Ryan on LinkedIn, and she was talking about policies with a human face. And I began realizing that there's so much that we really need to look at, even when we are coming up with policies, when we're coming up with rules that we assume are sort of like setting boundaries within which employees are supposed to operate, only to discover that we have actually not set those boundaries, but we have dehumanized them. And I was really, really impressed with that. And I tried to follow Liz Ryan and read most of her articles on policies with a human face. And then I've come to know Regina, who even puts it much better. And I'm sure those that are have tuned in today, you'll be able to appreciate the number of works that she has done and what she's really into, like Patrick has also indicated. Cincy is one of them there. Dr. Justin is one of them there. We are trusting and believing that humans are humane and are supposed to be treated as humans, no matter what organization, whatever company or industry they are working for, because they are the ones that have got the brains, not the computers. The computers are just informed as to what to do. So thank you so much, Samantha.
Thank you, Dr. Christine. Before we formally start with our discussion points, I would first like to take this opportunity to remind the audience to please like the OLDN TV and COLD page, share this video and all our other posts, and please feel free to comment any of your questions. Similar to previous consultative sessions, we encourage your participation, and we will try our best to address questions through the chat box as much as we can in between discussion points. So to begin, let me ask the panel this. How would each of you describe the concept of humanizing the workplace? Let's start off with you, Ms. Regina, please.
Yes, so humanizing the workplace, right? See, it's really about seeing the human in each employee. And this is something that's unfortunately not happening in too many organizations today. And with today's use of AI, so we just heard it from Dr. Christine, right? Computers, right? So with today's use of AI for talent management, it's becoming even more challenging. That's because AI thinks in categories and keywords, and it uses algorithms that are built on categories and keywords. And there's not a lot of room for individuality or distinctive uniqueness, as I call it in my framework, powerful leadership transformation. And that, in my opinion, is a problem. And this, if the audience could please mute yourself, thank you so much. If you're just coming in, would you mute yourself? Thank you. So, and this categorization is reinforced by putting people into so-called affinity groups. But what does that really mean? It means I'm supposed to have a certain affinity because of my skin color, my ethnicity, or my gender. That's not what human uniqueness is about. And it's not what inclusiveness is about, because it's not honoring our desire for individuation, for expressing our best self as humans, and for fulfilling our potential, for aligning what we do with our passions and our purpose and our unique life path. So I want to show you some shells that I have collected. I love shells because they're such a beautiful example of nature's creativity. So let me just share my screen real quick. So here you see on the right side what I was just talking about, those groups, right? I think this is what inclusiveness is not. And on the left side, we see this wonderful conglomerate, this puzzle of many puzzle pieces. And as humans, we are what you see on the left side naturally. So why are we putting humans into categories? Right? Do you see this immense diversity of individual expression? The same with humans. Yes. And this is really inclusiveness. It's inclusive diversity. And by the way, the word diverse includes all shells, just like it includes all humans, all people, not just certain demographics, right? So it's often misused. So I was working in the diversity and inclusion arena, and I was even leading a D&I roundtable consisting of diversity and inclusion leaders. And I was really passionate about the topic. But what I noticed is that a lot of the D&I initiatives, especially here in the US, in my opinion, are counterproductive. They are more divisive than inclusive oftentimes. And I found that people weren't really open to discuss other ways, and they were too ingrained in their thinking and almost indoctrinated. And I also found that the current ways oftentimes are victimizing certain groups, and victimization keeps people from self-empowering. It keeps people small, and it keeps people from self-expressing. And I believe this is done intentionally. And it's also used for identity politics, and it's very dangerous in my view. So that's why I started working on my own concept of inclusiveness. And I coined the term humanizing the workplace. I know I'm not the only one using that, but I coined that for my presentations, humanizing the workplace through inclusive leadership for my leadership trainings. And it's really about seeing the individual employee with their unique genius, with the talents and personal strengths and passions they bring to the table, with and honoring all of this through through their careers and throughout their careers, yes, by adapting their job descriptions, by considering their strengths and their talents when assigning them to projects, and customizing the training they receive. And that also means hearing them out before making decisions about them. And there's so much more to say, but I'm going to leave it here right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Regina. What a strong opening we have to the session with that definition and that explanation and even the visual aids. To move on, Mr. Patrick, what is your take on the definition of humanizing the workplace?
It's very simple. And just to start out, humanizing means, to my practice, is the manifestation of people's inalienable human rights, our innate human nature, as well as the manifestation of the natural abilities of humans as a whole person. That is humanizing to my practice.
Thank you. Beautifully put, Mr. Patrick. Dr. Christine, how would you describe the concept of humanizing the workplace?
I think it's just making a place a better place for human beings to function from, to work from. Most of the times you find we spend more hours at our work environments than home. I would actually be at work probably for about 8 hours. And when I get home, probably I only have about 4 hours with my family. Then I go to sleep. Unless if I'm doing something, then I get to do my work. So if the place where I'm working from has no human elements, it's all being micromanaged, then there's a problem. And the problem that is there is with the recruitment process. What did you employ? Who did you employ? Because if I am employing, I'm employing people with the capabilities to function in those same slots that we normally give them. But then if we fail to treat them well, then what are we saying? So humanizing a workplace is ensuring that we function as human beings that have got a human heart.
Thank you, Dr. Christine. So of course, with all these definitions or descriptions that we've discussed, I'm sure all of us, myself and the audience, would really want to hear what is your overall approach or suggested approach to humanizing the workplace. Dr. Christine, let's start with you.
I think for me, the approach would be, like I have already mentioned, is at recruitment stage. This is where, as leaders, because we are talking about transforming through leadership. So leadership has got much to do with the individuals that they are employing. They need to realize that they are just as human as the people that they are actually bringing in. And understanding that those human beings who are coming in have got a brain, they have got a heart, they've got a mind, they've got a soul. Now, it's not leaders that have got the privilege of a mind that thinks or a heart that beats. It's everybody. And so when these individuals are coming in, I think realizing that they are just as human as they are, that is very important. That these employees that we are bringing in can also make mistakes. That is very important. That these employees that we are bringing in can also wake up on the left side of their brain, where probably they begin to forget certain things. It's not time to begin to say you are useless and you need to leave. No, it's acknowledging that we all have limitations, but those limitations should actually be brought in and made to help someone to work even better. If I am able to manage, like we normally say, human resource management is not putting people in a box and expecting them to function in that box because I'm telling them turn left, turn right, go in front. No. It's managing is understanding or knowing the people that I'm working with in that particular team. So that if, for instance, I've got one that comes late perpetually, I need to find out why does this person come late perpetually, other than coming up with a policy that says you come late one day, you are given a written warning or a verbal warning, then finally after 2 days, then we get rid of you. No, because there could be important reasons why that person has come late. Sit down with them like you would with a human being and understand why that would have happened. I remember doing that. And this employee actually had problems at home. He did not sleep. And that helped to ensure to find better ways, or even being able to tell him, instead of coming at 9 o'clock, why can't you come at 10 o'clock and probably stay later so that you can actually do whatever could be outstanding. But where we begin to make it look like the employees are machines who just need to be told to turn around, do ABCD, the policy says so. What does the policy say when just a small error has happened? I think that is dehumanizing human beings.
Thank you, Dr. Christine. So Dr. Christine's approach is to understand humans as human beings and not as machines and not put them in a box. Ms. Regina, what is your take, or what is your overall approach or suggested approach to humanizing the workplace?
Well, we heard some concepts that I would like to point out again. And I heard freedom before. And I believe freedom is not assigned. And I think, Patrick alluded to freedom, at least in the human rights. So I think freedom is not assigned by organizations or by politicians. Freedom is a human birthright. Right. And I've also heard Dr. Christine talk about flexibility. Well, that's also part of understanding, right? So definitely I would like to confirm this and really acknowledge that we're all human beings, and as such, they have a say in their careers, and then a say in what they want to achieve. They have a right to express their career visions, their goals, and they want to be recognized for their contribution and able to integrate their work into the rest of their lives in a meaningful way, which allows them also to take care of their well-being and that of their families, right? So I don't use the term work-life balance, for example. For me, work is part of life. And we will never have balance. We can only set priorities. So how are we going to set those priorities together with our employer? And I also believe that organizations are quick to demand hard work, engagement, commitment, and all that, and loyalty. But what do they give in exchange? It's not only about the money and the perks. Humans don't want to just survive. They want to thrive, and they have a right to thrive. Yes, so it's their birthright to be honored, respected, acknowledged, always assuming they do their part as well, of course, right? And that's when they will show their best selves. And I think, did you want me to talk about distinctive uniqueness a little bit more here, Samantha? Or
we'll come back to it at a later time.
Later.
Okay,
okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, great. So that's what I have to say about this. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Regina, and for the clarifications and the reiterations also. Mr. Patrick, I'm sure everyone is waiting for your suggested approach in relation to your emergent OD practice.
Well, we take a systemic emergent approach to humanizing the workplace, and it's really the key is by embedding and manifesting human principles and values into the fabric of the organization.
Yes.
It's not speeches, it's not talks, it's not like luncheons or have somebody in or training or anything. It's embedding it into the fabric. And may I show you what I mean by sharing something? The
yes,
actual
Mr. Patrick,
EOD
please.
platform. So let me give it a shot. There we go. Now, this looks like a big deal, but it's not. And I'll only take a minute to show something from current slide. So here we go. This is about, it starts off basically, now I'm not good at this, so have patience with me, I'm only human. There we go. Starts off with reframing one's mindset. And I work with senior management around continuous exploratory conversations throughout this process. And I need to get rid of this somehow. So we inquire about certain things, we explore, we bring out curiosity, imagination, discovery, connecting, and we talk about humans and human nature and basic principles. And so it is a chance for them to explore these things. And that shift in mental framework of how we see things and our perceptions starts happening, and they get comfortable with that. Because what you see is what you create. the next phase of this is going, once they get a comfort with that and they like shifting their mental framework, and that starts the transformation process. But then we move into their business model. Human-centered values embedded into the business model, higher purpose, not just the business purpose. What's their higher purpose for humans and society itself? Talk about embedding it into their policies, creating a living culture, a living vision, so it lives and people experience it because people are experiential. How to put the human aspect into the product, into the service, into the business values. We talk a lot about leadership and what leadership is not. So basically, we start that within the business models to frame a fundamental of human-centered values into what kind of an organization do they want to create. And then align their business focus in line with their business purpose and their higher purpose, because their business purpose actually is a manifestor of their higher purpose, their principles and values into the process of organizational alignment. And that is, and we do this a lot, and that is bring principles and values into the actual goals, strategies, and milestones, how they're stated. I don't have the time to get much into this. And then there's the organizational design to embed those values and principles into novel organizational forms. We do not talk about structures and the old hierarchy and the silos which segment and objectify people. But how do we form things that actually work for human beings? And we gradually move towards collaborative network organizational forms rather than traditional industrial age hierarchy. Big difference. And then we embed values and principles into the business systems and the business processes designed themselves. We also integrate those values and principles, that humanists, into IT and IS systems to form collaborative networks, to manifest human values, collaboration, self-agency, which is so critical, desired cultures, self-organizing systems, and value-driven networks. Now, all of this actually encompasses what both Regina and Christine are talking about. The objectification of people, the labeling, the processing of human resources. Just labeling people as a human resource, a human capitalization degrades people. So this is how we approach it, by embedding those principles that the company themselves come up with through these conversations, that they come up with human values. Here's another thing about leadership I want to stress here. I work with a lot of leadership, and their community and social values are quite different than their corporate values. And there's an incongruency there. And they live with that when they become aware of it. And there's a conflict within each person. We have to create a congruency between their individual family values, their individual values, their community values, and their corporate values, because 99% of them walk through that door with a corporate hat on and their values change. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So generally, this is how we embed those principles, human principles and values, into the fabric of the organization by working with leadership to design their organizations that give that experience of humanness to not just their employees, but to themselves, to their customers, and to their supply chain. They become a model within society. And that's all I have to say about that at this point. I hope that makes sense to people.
Yes, Mr. Patrick, thank you. So to follow up with that concept of working with the organization's management to integrate seeing everybody as a human, even considering that everybody steps into the company with their corporate hat on, and some values may change. In your practice, Mr. Patrick, is there a cornerstone principle that you see as critical to manifesting humanizing the workplace? Would you like to elaborate on this?
I actually want to share it too. May I share my screen again, please? Thank you very much.
Yes, please, Mr. Patrick.
Let's see if I can do it. This goes to a lot of things that have been said. This comes from the work of Carl Wheat, and I've sort of adjusted it. Existence precedes essence, which means that the most important consideration for individuals is that they are independently acting and responsible whole conscious beings. Their existence is what counts. Rather than what labels roles, submissions, stereotypes, definitions, or other preconceived categories the individual may be fitted into as an artificial pseudo-existence. And boy, are we good at that, aren't we? As individuals, as organizations, as societies, as governments, we don't see the person. We see what roles, stereotypes, and categorizations we put on them. Today's organizations still have a mindset based on scientific management and Taylorism, profiling, objectification, isolating, slicing and dicing into parts, putting people into boxes and categorizations. That's the fundamental principle. The second one is about, because we are so leading into IT and IS in technology, I created this term that guides us because I've been designing technology and bringing humanistics into technology since the early 1980s. ATIS and AI information technology systems and processes designed to support, augment, and facilitate human information processing and the human experience. That's informatics. Marked by humanistic values and a devotion to human and our planet's well-being, human-centered and performance-centered. This guides us in our design when we work with IT people. We talk about this, we have those exploratory shifting mindsets, and this is a critical one throughout the world as it changes people working for technology to technology working for people. And that's all the time I have to say about that stuff.
So thinking about these two principles, Mr. Patrick, one last follow-up question before we move on to Ms. Regina. So what are some organizational concepts, attributes, and conditions that manifest humanizing the workplace?
Can I share another screen?
Yes, go ahead.
I think the critical thing is reframing mindsets and exploring novel perspectives. Because this is a favorite of mine that I've been saying for 30 years. What we see is what we create. If we see something one way, we'll create it that way. If we frame our minds towards being human, we will create something totally novel, totally new. I don't talk about leadership. For 60 years, people have poured billions of dollars into leadership development. Hasn't worked. Where are the leaders? Out of thousands, I've only met 5. I focus on a leadership culture because yes, it is the main thing that, let's say, influences what the culture is. I believe that leaders have to become people again. We need to humanize humans, yes, but we have to humanize leadership. Create a culture, a consistent, congruent cultures, because they are the key influencers of organizational culture. So I've shifted my perspective around the focus. I also believe in another concept, attribute, and condition is a living culture and a living vision. I no longer go for a future culture because of the rapid change and complexity of the world. I've seen it put up in nice little framed posters on the wall and people walk up to it. That's not our culture. That's not what I experience today. And they get frustrated. But boy, they have nice lunches talking about, oh, leadership with their future visions. No, you have to make it live. You have to make your culture live. And there's ways to do it. We're talking real time. We're talking today. I've talked a little bit about a higher purpose. Why do we exist as an organization? What do we bring to our society? What do we bring to families? What do we bring to communities? Novel organizational forms, hierarchical silos to interconnected networks, manifesting self-agency. I'm big on self-agency and self-organizing capabilities. People are people. Look at what people do outside of their jobs. They raise families. They coach sports. They belong to community things. They do a lot of things. But we narrow them down into little boxes, HR boxes, and boy, I'll tell you, people after 6 months, the best of the best, you know what happens? They learn to survive. They learn to live in a box. So organizations, they haven't quite learned to bring out the best in people and all of the capabilities of people and look at a person as a whole person, not as a role or a function or that kind of thing. Generative dialogue, human connection through good conversations. And I like to say a good conversation is a good conversations. That's where things and minds and emotionals shift. I have to say that humans are first emotional beings, not this intellectual beings that we have all these numbers after our names, and boy, we give out nice medals and you know, I won this award and I'm an intellect and I have a PhD. No, we're emotional beings because that's what filters our information. And that's how we perceive things. And we have to get back to understand how emotional being we are. Fair benefits and compensation. The ratio of profit to the frontline person, the senior management is ridiculous. Talk about frustration. We need to bring in fair benefits and compensation to all. People can't even live with the money they get now. But the people at the top, they're making millions. Even if they screw up on their contracts, they go out with millions of dollars. So these are some organizational concepts and attributes and conditions that I'd like to mention. Thank you very much for your time and listening.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Putting a pin into compensation, but let's go back to the topic of looking at humans outside of boxes again. I'm coming back to Ms. Regina now. Ms. Regina, could you tell us more on the previously introduced topic of distinctive uniqueness?
Yes, and I'm going to share a quick overview here of my powerful leadership transformation. Can you see it? Yes, it's sharing. Yes. Okay, so this is my powerful leadership transformation overview with the 4 pillars. And as you can see, distinctive uniqueness is one of the pillars. And it's exactly, so we heard Patrick talk about boxes. So I talk about also here about, it's really about unboxing people, right? But of course, you know, leadership starts with self, whether you want to call it leadership or something else, but it starts with self, right? And this self-leadership is happening in all people, not just at the so-called leadership levels. It's also happening in the individual, ideally, so that they can actually live their best self in those organizations. So I call this mindset a self-empowering mindset and heart set. I'm going to talk about this in just a little bit. Distinctive uniqueness, we're going to expand on a bit more, and then there are some other elements here that I love because they are not always talked about, such as body and energy conscious presence, the role of energy in business, and as in human beings, really, because that's what we're talking about here the most, and as a result, more inspired and effective action. So this is just a quick overview, but what I want to go a little bit deeper into is, you know, this well, quickly, just the heart set as well, because hardly anybody talks about heart set, but it's important in this context. Yes, it's a very complex topic and its extent goes a little bit beyond this session, but I wanted to say that in the context of humanizing the workplace, it's about ethical, being an ethical leader. It's about combining the wisdom of the heart with the mind's intelligence, because the mind's intelligence is only a part of it. It's important, but it's not all of it, as we just heard also from Patrick, right? So it's about compassion. It's about co-creation rather than power over others, and it's about enablement rather than authority. So in short, it's about the together in business and recognizing that we are really all one in all areas of life, including business. And in previous sessions, I shared a link, which I can share again, about this topic that goes more into detail about the new business consciousness of love, compassion, and co-creation. So I'd be happy to share that again later. So specifically, distinctive uniqueness is really about unboxing people. Our distinctive uniqueness, and it always starts with us, right? So that when we can understand it in others. So it consists of everything that makes us unique and special. You know, there are about 7.9 billion people on this planet. You can look that up on actually I want to share this real quick if we have a minute, because this is really, really interesting. Let me see if I can do this very quickly. So here you can see the current world population, right? And it's still growing despite what some people want it to be. So we have almost 7.9 billion people on this planet right now. And not one of these 7.9 billion humans has your DNA unless you're cloned, okay? So you think that's a coincidence that we're all unique? Of course not, because we're all meant to be unique. We're all unique pieces in the bigger human puzzle and the bigger humanity puzzle. And we are meant to complement each other. And that's why we came to this earth with a unique purpose. But then we're educated out of our distinctive uniqueness at school for the most part, because we're not taught to uncover our unique brilliance and genius. Instead, we're taught to compete and focus on what makes us better than others. Yeah, when in reality, it's not about being better, it's about being different. So why is that? Well, the underlying intention of the school system is to shape us into beings that fit into a work society, into a system that was not necessarily made for us. So we are pressed into a school system that only fits a certain type of talent. And I'm talking about basic education here, where you cannot really choose much, right? So we are indoctrinated and we're told false history and all that stuff. And we're not told or taught to honor our purpose. So many employees aren't even fully aware of what their unique brilliance and their best professional selves consist of. And others are aware, but they cannot find a way to express it because it's not encouraged, or they fear to be, not accepted, right, in some way. So in a nutshell, our distinctive uniqueness is our unique combination. It's a package of our talents and gifts, our natural strengths, our acquired skills, our knowledge, our background, unique background. No one has exactly the same background, yes? Our education, experiences, stories, character, personality, passions, our purpose, calling, the list goes on endlessly, right? It's that unique package that every single human is and brings to the table, and we need to honor that. That's humanizing, and that's inclusiveness. And it's not it's not inclusiveness to categorize people. We've heard about this now several times, because that's dividing people into silos. So through humanizing, we can create more co-creation, because when we're fully aware of our own distinctive uniqueness, it becomes easier to see it in others and to honor it in others. And when we understand why we're all unique, there's no more need to feel threatened by others who are different or differently great. And there's no more need to compete. And we can now bring our individual puzzle pieces together into a functional team. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Regina. There's a comment actually that fits into the puzzle statement, that we were meant to complement each other. That's Mompati Kadi. Very beautiful. Mr. Patrick, you have a comment?
Just want to reflect and say something about what Regina mentioned, and that is empathy. I have a lot of empathy for leaders also. They're sort of stuck in a lot of drivers and pressures from stakeholders, quarterly reports. They're within a system that puts a lot, the board, expectations, media, social media. They're in a lot of pressure. They're pulled and pushed from many sides. And we have to remember that leaders are human also. But at the same time, it's a balance of how to make leaders human again, because they're stuck in this box themselves. And I do ask staff and I hate to use the word employees, but other people in the organizations, what can they do to support their leaders to be successful? So, it goes both ways. We need to have empathy for everybody, because everybody's human.
Thank you, Mr.
Right.
Patrick.
And I think also, Patrick, it's about compassion. It's not just because empathy to me is more of an ability. I know we use that a lot in business, but I believe that it actually goes beyond. Compassion is really what we bring as a behavior. Yeah. So empathy is more like, okay, I have this ability to feel somebody's pain, but I can use that even in negative ways. So that compassion of, okay, I try to understand you, I try to put myself in your shoes so that then we can have a conversation. Right?
Good point. Let's add another word, appreciation.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I love that word.
We agree. And there is a comment that's in line with appreciation. It's great to humanize human creation. That's Janet, Miss Janet Akinbodewa. Very beautifully put. So moving on, I'm sure in relation to everything that's been discussed so far, again, all of us are waiting. If you could each discuss your opinion on the significance of creating an organizational culture which focuses on openness and co-creation. So Dr. Christine, going to you now, please.
Well, thank you very much. I think one thing that we need to note is humanizing a workplace is not a weakness. Because I know a number of people have said, when you do that, then that is a weakness. They are not going to work. They are not going to do what they're supposed to do and things like that. I don't think so. Humanizing a workplace is a strength and it works. That is very true. I remember I was talking to women one time about the girl child, you know, where I'm growing up and the focus of my mother is to prepare me to be a wife. So if she's teaching me how to prepare a certain dish, instead of her focusing on me, learning how to cook, she's like, this is how you're going to cook for your husband. The husband, I don't even have a picture of this husband. And so here is a girl who is being brought up in this particular box, a wife of somebody she doesn't even know. And the moment she gets married, even the marriage itself becomes a problem because she has grown up thinking when she cooks, it's for the man. When she cleans, it's for the man. When she dresses up, it's for the man. Why should you dress like that? And I don't think that is correct. I think that is a particular kind of culture that we're trying to say we shouldn't bring in a workplace. Let people be people. Allow them to be human. And when we do that, then we sort of like unleash the potential that is in them because they have been recognized as individuals, as human beings, then they are going to actually work. So I think this humanizing a workplace, from my point of view, I think other facets that should also be considered are transparency. You know, a number of times we don't want to be transparent to workers, to the employees, to the people that we are working with, because we feel that if they know this is how much the company is making, then they will demand more money. Like Patrick has indicated, some of these, the people that we are working with, the amount of money they are getting cannot even see them at the end of the month, not even a week. It's already gone. They have to find other ways and means to meet up, which is not good because if I'm working and I'm beginning to think of a personal business that should be able to bring me more money, then my focus is also divided, you know. So transparency is also another thing. The other thing is, can they trust us? Can they trust that what I'm saying is something that is for their own good? You'll find a number of times the people that we are working with will not even trust us. You can even tell them, no, you see, we are looking at the wages and things like that. They will tell you that's what has been said from January to December. It's the same thing that we tell them. And why do we do that? Because it's like we are treating them like children. It's like we are treating them like these people that we have put in a box. They are not important. What is important is to make sure that this company, this organization makes the money that it wants. So we need to humanize the workplace, begin to recognize humanity or humane in a work environment.
Good stuff, Christine. If I may mention something, this weakness, that's a very good point. It depends on how it's approached. When I was working with Hewlett Packard out in California, USA, met David Packard, great guy, knew everybody's family. And he just said, it just makes good business sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it does. The more you think about it, the more it makes just good business sense rather than a weakness. So I applaud you, Christine, for bringing that up. You have to change that mindset.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. We are getting a lot of agreement from the audience, somebody just said that I 100% agree with you, Dr. Christine. From a very young age, we are conditioned to serve men, which make us second. That's a very strong statement. But before we dive into that too much, Ms. Regina, would you like to discuss your opinion on the significance of creating an organizational culture which focuses on openness and co-creation?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm a huge fan of co-creation. It's even usually included in my bio somewhere. and because I don't really believe in competition, I think I've said that several times, right? So as long as we focus on competition, we are actually missing out because we are expending so much energy on the concept that there's not enough. And there is enough for everyone to go around if we just focus away from competition and toward our, what I call actually, you know, this distinctive uniqueness and our individual greatnesses, and really see the genius in each individual. So everybody is different for that reason, right? And then also I think openness is about open-mindedness, about listening, hearing people out, encouraging sharing, not punishing it, as is often the case when we are when people are ridiculed. That's terrible. So then also we mentioned curiosity a few times today. I think it's an essential leadership trait, and it's an essential trait for everybody. I'm actually just creating an online course together with HR.com on curiosity and how to use it in a way that benefits the team, you know, whether you're a team leader or in any role, really, you can use it. There's always a difference, you know, between engaging curiosity, as I call it in this course, and invasive curiosity. It's none of my business if you have a boyfriend or if you know, what you do in your evening, right? But it should be my business to find out what, as a team leader, what you are trying to achieve with your career, right? So, and it's also about, in general terms, just it's about the together rather than the against each other. And yes, I agree, it makes good business sense. So when we want to get buy-in for any elements of humanizing the workplace, it's always also important to make the business case so that we can achieve it. Yes, so thank you for this opportunity to share.
Thank you, Ms. Regina. Mr. Patrick, we go over to you. Would you like to discuss how you think culture plays a part in humanizing the workplace, especially a culture that focuses on openness and co-creation?
It's big. The key is not really how it plays a part, is how we create a living culture. So people experience novel experiences that start to develop new norms, new behaviors, new perspectives, new ways of doing things. An organization culture, as we define it, is simply the influencing patterns that people consistently and congruently experience over time, which then emerges as norms, the beliefs and values and practices that guide people in their perspectives, attitudes, decisions, and behavior in present time. This co-creation is so critical because it manifests for me and for my clients the concept of self-agency, that people can influence their workplace. They have influence in their life. They can speak up, they have a voice, and it is manifested within and through their experiences, which is called a culture, as well as the practices, policies, and behaviors of others. Become sort of, this is how we work together. So the other thing it does is creates a degree of that influence that we can self-organize, that we can come together. I can call a meeting. I can get people together. I can get my network together in order to either solve something or create something. I have that ability. I don't have to go to my manager to get permission. I'm an adult. I can do that. I do that outside of work. I can do that inside of work. That moves from the silos. And I'm not talking about cross-functional meetings. I'm talking about day-to-day abilities of people that can bring people together on their own volition. They are responsible people. Let them bring people together in order to make this a better place to both live and work.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Patrick. So thinking about how we create the culture that we have in a company, we've also mentioned previously, I believe it was Humanics. Is that the correct term that you use for your?
Humanics, yes,
Yes.
technology.
So before we move on, let's just go to a very small segue briefly. So how do you think technology manifests when humanizing the workplace?
Are you asking myself? Well, I think it is a critical thing, and it will be in the future. It is now in the present. Just think about it, it's just starting out. We're just starting out. Technology has been with us, what, 30 years? I started working with technology in the late 70s. It's exponential. But the key thing is to remember that countries work off of information. Governments work off of information. Communities do. Organizations do, and so do people. It's time to open up our systems so people can self-manage, self-organize, get people together. But they need that information to do that. Very early on with a company in California called Rome Corporation, they're a big telecommunications corporation. I was working with their senior management, having one of these exploratory interviews, and they said, how do we get our people to think like we do as a business? And I said, well, what does that help? What helps you think as a business? Information, because they get the reports, they get the overall information, they get the information from certain siloed departments, so they have an overall view. So I said, well, let's experiment. Let's open up your information systems so people can create their own customized information flow. And it's interesting, 90% of the people, the first thing in marketing or operations or wherever they were, even frontline people, they opened up finance. And then they opened up what marketing was doing, how they're doing and their trend lines. And then they opened up certain parts of operations. So when they got together, they started asking bigger questions. They started asking more deeper questions. They started understanding the organization as a whole. So my point is, it's time to open up our information systems to everybody in the organization. And that creates a network of information. And people start understanding where the organization is, where it's going, and how they contribute to it. That's part of self-agency. So I just say very simply, let's open up our information and not be that hierarchical control of management and information that reinforces the concepts of the lords and the serfs. So that's all I got to say about that.
Yes, and I think that ties into what Dr. Christine has previously mentioned, that there should be a certain type of transparency in the organization for there to be trust as well. So to finally cap this very interesting discussion before we completely run out of time, how do you think that the deconstruction of hierarchies can be related to this entire theme? Dr. Christine.
Wow, that's very, very, very interesting, because we had the hierarchies. I remember when I was learning my human resource management, and then we were told flat is better, flat is better. But wherever you go, even if they're telling you that there's flat, it's not flat, it's hierarchical. We love these hierarchies. And for instance, like in our case in Zambia, we are a society that is collective. And coming from where we come from in our traditional villages and all that, it's very hierarchical, because you've got even in families, like if I meet in a meeting with family members from different siblings of my mother, my submission is not going to be accepted if the firstborn in my mother's family is there. He's the one or she's the one that has the permission to speak. Hierarchically, she has the authority, not me. You see, so these hierarchies, I think it will take a long time to get rid of them. And what we are actually talking about today is one way of, as much as possible, reducing or getting rid of these hierarchies. Because when we realize that we are just as human, when we realize that the knowledge we have is as a result of conversations, is as a result of dialogues that we have with our fellow human beings, then we'll realize that actually on our own, we are nothing. We cannot function. One of the things that I have learned actually, even from ODL, is these dialogues that we are having, what we are having at the moment today. I am sure that each individual that is here is going to go out, not with just what we have been speaking about, but more that has been generated out of these conversations, you see. And so that's where we need to begin from, because then that will bring down these hierarchies that we love so much. We love to be called Vice Chancellor. We love to be known the DVC. And even in a workplace, you find that instead of people calling me by my name, I am called Dr. Mushiwe, or someone just says VC. It's the title that stands. But these are things that we are trying as much as possible to bring down. And because of those titles and all that, you find that the hierarchies will continue, because we think that is being human in a workplace, when it is not. It is about being normal, being a human being. I am Christine, and that should be appreciated. Go to meetings, titles are the most important. If you meet somebody you have not seen probably for months or years, and then you greet them by their first name, they'll remind you, oh, no, I'm now professor. Already that is a hierarchy, because even the way I'm going to treat you now is as a professor. Professors are treated with certain respect. You know, even the way you respond to them is with certain respect. That is a hierarchy already that we have created there. So we need to be very careful. And the conversations or the dialogues that we are having now is very, very important. I love what Patrick said. Patrick said, embedding human-centered values in the fabric of the organization. And that is important. If you know how fabric is comes about, it is intricate. And that is what we need to do. Those intricate areas where we think it doesn't matter, they are the ones that actually matter with the people that we are working with.
Dr. Christine? But I do agree with what she was saying, Mr. Patrick, and I believe it also ties into the battle of existence and essence that you previously mentioned. Dr.
Yes.
Christine, are you back? Yes, is there anything more to add?
Oh, I was kicked out.
Yes, it froze for a second.
Oh, sorry. It means my internet is giving up on me. IT, Patrick.
We'll never give up on you.
Basically, what I'm saying is let's try as much as possible to bring down the hierarchies. By humanizing the workplace, we will try as much as possible to bring down these hierarchies.
Thank you, Dr. Christine. Miss Regina, what do you think? How is the deconstruction of hierarchies related?
Yes, so I am definitely a proponent of everything that's just been said. And, you know, I grew up in a relatively egalitarian, or at least seemingly egalitarian, I should say, society in Germany. And, you know, it's not always, everything is not as it seems, I have to also say. But then I moved to other cultures and I saw differences there, and it was just very interesting to observe all these differences, right? So how are hierarchies different in different societies, in different cultures, how they are created at home, how they are created at school, in organizations. It's just really interesting to observe that. We all have them everywhere. In some way. But I was surprised, of course, when I moved abroad for the first time, and I was to Spain, not too far away really, but even there was such a big difference in how people treated each other, how much more important that doctor title was, how much, you know, and then I moved more into the Latino world and in Latin America, and there all the, you know, all the college titles and the university titles were really, really, really important to use every time you addressed somebody. So I was not used to that, right? But there were, of course, other structures in place in Germany as well. And I also, even within the same organization, I've moved to different offices in different countries, and every time it was different, completely different, right? So that was very interesting to observe. And also how people perceive those those supposed flat organizations. So I was always in a role at BCG where I was between all the parties. I was sort of the central point who had to make sure that everything was working correctly. So from operations to people management to hiring to all the different functions, right? And in that central position, I got to see all the different, what would you call it, mechanisms maybe of hierarchies and of behaviors. And that was a great learning curve for me because I grew up in a family where we did not have a lot of hierarchy, actually. So it was a little bit in my blood, a little bit less in my blood. But so I was observing, so I was always in a position, gladly, and I'm very grateful for that, to be quite at a quite a neutral point where I was not afraid of so-called higher levels, where I would speak to them in the same way as I'd speak to my team, you know, and I think that is something that I appreciate about myself. I think we're also allowed to do that, right? And I had to learn a lot of other things because I was not prepared for that role. I was just placed into the cold water at the time. And I learned a lot by doing, but it's also a great way to learn. Yes. So I just think, you know, we have to become the observers of all these, everything that's going on and see, okay, what is something that might be even beneficial from that structure that we want to keep, and what is something that is not beneficial and that we want to get rid of.
Thank you, Mr. Gina. Yes, you should appreciate yourself for having the mic to talk to senior management or somebody higher than you with the same level of confidence. Mr. Patrick, what is your take on the deconstruction of hierarchies and its relation to humanizing the workplace?
And Samantha, I just want to really rectify this real quick. So it's not that I had all the confidence. It was just like, you know, I built my confidence very diligently over the years by moving to different places because I was the shyest girl in the entire village. Okay. So, and I had to rebuild it as I moved along in my career because I was at a point where I lost a business through a fraudulent business partner and I had to restart from scratch, and my confidence and my self-esteem was completely destroyed. So this is also why mindset is so important in my work now, when I work with individuals. But the thing is, it was just this, it's this original knowing that we have about certain things, you know, that it's just not right or that it's just right. I think that's what actually pushed me.
Okay. I think you brought diligent to a different definition today, Mr. Gina, because I don't think any of us could say that you are any version of shy. But if you say so, we will believe you.
I was the shyest.
Well, simply this age of industrial hierarchical organizations have been around since the 1890s, Taylorism, and so is scientific management. And it's still dominant today. I'd say 99% of organizations. Would you buy a car from the 1890s and drive it down the highway? Of course not. These hierarchies cannot significantly humanize the workplace because of their design, their structure, everything about them. If you really look at work, it's done by the informal organization, which is really a network. Reporting is done hierarchically, and that doesn't need to be. So it really cannot humanize the workplace because of the design itself, no matter what. What can? Changing mindsets, changing the form of organization. And I don't mean structure, I mean everything in an organization. Has to be explored, has to be talked about, has to have good conversations. I think it's time to move into the age of collaborative networks and design organizations around that. So people can talk to people, people can be people. It's time to get rid of the hierarchy. My bottom line.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Yes, it's we've heard the theme going over and over again, that it's about seeing people more than functions. It's seeing them more than titles, and it's seeing them as people. Thank you very much for that beautiful close. So before we open the floor to discussions, are there any closing notes or closing remarks before we open into discussions from our panelists? Mr. Gina?
I think we have had a wonderful exchange. I just want to keep this short because I do want to give the audience the opportunity to ask questions and to share. And I'm seeing some really great comments also in the chat box. So I appreciate you all. I appreciate the contributions of the panelists, your wonderful coordination today again, Samantha, and the introduction by Justin without the doctor. And and also, please, Samantha, when you email me next time, as I've said 3 times now, just call me Regina. Thank you.
Like we talk about the culture things, Regina, it's not in my culture. It's like changing my values. I don't want to change my values when I put my corporate cap on. It's very hard for me.
Do whatever you're pleased to do, really, but you're free to, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Patrick, closing notes to our
closing, I think it very simply, it's time to humanize the human again. And not just in the workplace, but also in society and throughout the world. You know, it's just time to rehumanize the human. Allow the human to be human.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Dr. Christine.
I think I'm going to repeat what Patrick has said. Allow the human to be human. That is important. I think that is what we need to take from here. Yeah.
Yes, we let people be people. And now we open the floor to the members of the audience who may have additional questions or comments. You can either unmute or type it in the chat box and I will read it out for you. Our panelists will address as many as as the time will allow. We're already over time, but we can extend to maybe until 6:30 if that's okay, panelists. Okay. Yeah. So there was a hand raised previously. Mr. Mompati, would you like to unmute or type something in the chat box? So far, we do have comments. I did see a question by Ms. Titi earlier in the session. I was just worried that we were going to run out of time. I believe her question was...
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mompati, go ahead. Please ask your question.
Thank you, Samantha. And let me also thank the speakers for such an insightful, very informative session that we have had. There are quite a lot of lessons to take from here. We could take the whole day talking about it because it speaks to us. It speaks to us as leaders. It speaks to us as employees. I just loved the idea of letting human beings be human beings. And I also appreciated the fact that we are different people. In an organization, we need to appreciate the fact that we are all different, but we complement each other for one goal. I think that's one thing that I've also learned. You know, the first days that I joined OLDN, I had a challenge of doctors and professors being called just by their names: Justine, Christine, Patrick, Regina. You know, at one point I had to ask. I was asking Justin, is this okay? For us to just be addressing you with your first names like this? And he was saying, no, that's fine. That's what we do here. That's our culture here. So if we can have this culture of OLDN, of just addressing human beings as human beings, then we are going to go very far. I think sometimes we are afraid to express ourselves, especially in meetings. If you are being addressed by a professor and the first moment you start saying professor, then what you are saying is I'm lower than you. Say there's nothing much bigger that I can say. So I think that culture, you know, even now it's still there in us, though OLDN has tried to take it from me. Yeah, we still struggle to address human beings as human beings. So thank you very much. I think this was a very interesting session. I would keep repeating on it and you know, rewatching it so that I keep learning more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mompati. Like Mr. Gina said, I have the very same problem with you. I still find it hard to just say the first name of a person, especially coming from the Philippines. It's not the norm at all. Are there any comments towards Mr. Mompati before I ask a question from Ms. Titi?
I'd just like to thank,
Oh.
I just want to thank Mr. or Mompati for what he said. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mompati, thank you. I also want to thank you, of course, and I appreciate your sharing what you have observed today and your own thoughts, because we're also all learning from our audience. And I'd also like to encourage you to share this with whoever you think might benefit once the recording is available, and it will be.
Thank you.
Or just the link on Facebook. Sorry.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Gina. So just going back to an earlier question from Ms. Titi, it's actually quite interesting. Is it dehumanizing to categorize people in the workplace, such as by race or by profession or etc.? It's a very interesting question. So would anybody like to address it?
Yes, I absolutely believe it's dehumanizing. You know, we talk a lot about, we have talked a lot about putting people into boxes, into categories or classifications. And Patrick also talked about objectification. So this is all the same, right? So we are losing sight of the individual. We are losing sight of the human essence. And yes, we talk about human resources. I think it's time to really come up with better terms for certain things, yeah. Or at least, you know, as a first step, we can see the human in the resource. but it's time to come up with better terms. And you know, we use so many terms that we have been using for decades that make no sense in a way. And it starts with words, because words matter. We say them all the time. Words create our reality. So yes, putting people into those groups. I know there's a strong tendency. We call them all sorts of things, affinity groups, resource groups, but are they really a resource for people in this day and time? Maybe they had a function in the past at some point when, you know, small minorities needed a voice, but we have now grown out of that time. It's time to look into the future and into a better way.
I see Mr. Patrick giving you the good, very good, and he completely agreed symbol. Mr. Patrick,
yeah, and just to add to Regina's point, this is the way that we learned to get institutionalized. And as we get institutionalized, that gives the hierarchy, the control, and the ability to manage. Mm-hmm. So this is part of our institutionalization as we go and we learn in our society, our education, etc. And it's just a way to control.
Yes, and divide, I want to add. So, you know, it's the divide and conquer, right?
Yeah, good point.
End, because the same is happening in our societies to a very, very, you know, very, very big extent right now, on purpose.
I believe that you mentioned it a while ago also, Ms. Regina, that we're indoctrinated to think in a certain way, and this is one of those examples. Dr. Christine, do you agree that it's dehumanizing to put people into categories?
It is. The only thing is that it is very difficult because different professionals will be here. And when they hear that, the questions are really, because we love these boxes. We love these titles that we have given ourselves, these professionals, this what and this what. And just to bring humanity to be there, it's going to be a very difficult thing. And that is why I say humanizing a workplace is not a weakness, because I know I've heard people saying that is a weakness, you know, and yet it is a strength, because what you are actually doing is strengthening the very humans that you have there to be able to perform. It is not the title that works. It's not the profession that we categorize ourselves into that works. It's not the race that works, because in the end, I know, like in our culture here in Zambia, when I was growing up, we used to be told, don't eat like that, eat like a white man. You see, racially we thought a white man eats better, chews better. When even myself, I would chew better, but because they wanted me to chew like, you know, That I don't think that is right. And that is why we've got all these problems, even when we talk about racial, tribals, there are countries that are suffering because of tribal issues, because people have put themselves, or even families now. You find, like now, Zambia is going for elections very soon, within days. And you hear even politicians are saying it. Ours. Why are they saying ours? Because they're coming from the same tribe. And so they feel that they are obligated to vote for him because he's coming from the same tribe, which I don't think is good. But if we look at, is this person capable enough to lead us? Is this person capable enough to be able to transform the country with the people that he has? I think that will be more humane than what we are actually doing.
Yes, and if I might add, you know, Christine, it's related to what I mentioned earlier, the identity politics, right? So this is very dangerous. It's also happening here. You know, we don't call people tribes in the US, but it's the same principle. Like we have this, it's getting to a very, very dangerous point here right now, and I think it's urgent. It might not be easy, as you said, but it's still important to do it. We cannot just move away from it because it's not easy. And we do have a question here in the chat box. Samantha, would you like to read that out? Justin put it in.
Yes, very quickly though, before we go to the question from Ida Jalasi, Avila Goba has had her hand up for a while now. Miss or Mr. Avila, would you like to ask your question before I dive into this last question from Dr. Justin? Mr. or Mrs. Avila? Okay, maybe afterwards. So Ada Jalasi has asked, how can we have order in an organization if we let humans be human while bearing in mind that we come from different backgrounds and individuals, viewing a work environment with different goals and ambitions? Okay, would somebody like to address this very intricately woven question? Mr. Patrick.
That's a great question.
I agree.
And I don't have the answer, but I do have thoughts. And coming from different backgrounds and individuals, viewing a work environment with different goals and ambitions, that's great. As humans, how can we support that? How can we appreciate diversity of different backgrounds, different cultures? We can learn from that. Let's open the door. Let's open our minds as humans and appreciate. I think that that's the word that comes to me, is appreciate those differences. Use them. Learn from them. Who says one culture has all the answers, or one person? Let's integrate that and find common ground and appreciate differences. Yes, you may have different goals as an individual than I do, and ambitions. That's great. How can I appreciate that and support that? That's what a network is. At the same time, we have common goals around the corporate goals or the departmental goals as they're aligned. So our work has common goals. We need to have input and influence on that and state it in our ways as a team. So differences doesn't mean conflict. Differences doesn't mean not working together. Actually, the appreciation of that thing brings us together to find common ground and appreciate differences. That's my experiences.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Appreciate differences. Yes, Ms. Regina.
May I add something? Because of everything you said, I don't want to say the same thing in different words, but there is a business case in this too, right? So more diverse ideas increase our potential for creativity and therefore for innovation. So again, we have a business case in all of this, right?
Thank you, Ms. Regina. Dr. Christine, any thoughts before we move on to Dr. Avila?
I understand what Ada is actually saying. That kind of a confusion is something that people are afraid of. People are afraid that if we remove these titles, we remove these roles, we remove these boxes, and we remain just as people, it is going to destroy what we have learned in school all this particular time. We went to primary school, they were telling us the head teacher there, they weren't there. We went to secondary school, they were telling us these positions increased from senior teacher to heads of department to whatever. We went to university, we found faculty heads and what have you. And, you know, there are these professionals and that is what we have learned. That is what has actually gone into us. And to change the mindset is not something that is very easy. Yes, there are some that are going to see it as something that is good. Others are going to receive it with a lot of feelings and beginning to, you know, to bring reality before them and see total confusion. Where is the Vice Chancellor? No, the Vice Chancellor, you know, if you've read about Ricardo Simler, with this whole idea of transparency and what have you. He's one person that moved people from one department to another department because as far as he was concerned, everybody should be able to function. You know, we shouldn't have a situation where if the secretary is not there, then the company goes dead. All phone calls are nowhere because the secretary is out. And that is what we do. At the moment, even in our country, a lot of work is not going on. Why? Because the managing director is working from home, so he cannot sign this document. And these roles are important for whatever needs to be done. And that is also bringing a lot of issues and problems in organizations. But it will be difficult. People will find that because that's how we have been operating. So to try to bring those walls down, to bring those boxes down, to bring those boundaries down, it's going to take some time. And it will also be a change that even the people we are working with will need to appreciate. Because already Samantha is telling us she's finding it difficult to say Regina. It's because there's a wall that she needs to bring down, and it will take some time as she continues with the organization here. I'm sure finally she'll be able to say Christine, and it will be okay with her.
The wall is slowly being chipped away, but I'm barely making any progress.
She's shaking her head. You know, when I went to school and I was asked, what's the name of your father? I said, my father is my father, because we were taught not to name, to mention the name of your father. Yeah, so I never knew the name of my father until I got to grade 7, when I was reading his document, which he had given me, and that's his name. And when I got home and called him by that name, I got a slap from my mother. Don't call him by his first name. And my mother and my father, their title changes when they give birth to a child, because then they take the name of the child now, and it becomes their title. Like in my case, I would be called Mother of Mwerwa, but I've refused. I've told people I'm not Mother of Mwerwa. My name is Christine. You see, so it's these titles that are going to be so difficult, because it's not just at school. Some of them are coming even from our culture, and they have wormed themselves into organizations, into schools, and they have now become part and parcel of humanity, but it's not humanity at all. That's why we are saying, let's dehumanize, let's be humans, let people be people, and it will work well. Just like a wife can be a wife, not what has been taught to a point when the man enters the house, the wife scampers, children scamper there because the husband has arrived, who has the authority, who now can dictate what needs to be eaten. I think that is not being human. Let's begin to bring down these walls, these boundaries, these wall fences we have built around ourselves, the boxes that we have created. We can begin to bring them. But whether it is radical or it is gradual, it will depend upon institutions.
Yes, Christine, you brought up a really good point. It takes time. Let's not believe in magic, that we go away for 2 days and everything will change. It takes time. Sometimes in initial clients of mine, we spent a year exploring concepts and having good conversations. It's not an overnight thing. One has to understand human nature and that whole aspect of, yes, it does take time, and have patience with your clients. Have those good conversations. These people that go in with those 2-day workshops and they come in and they go out, it doesn't work. It's a nice thing. They have nice lunches. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes understanding. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Thank you, Dr. Christine. Very quickly, let me just go back to Dr. Avila before Ms. Tsitsi closes us off. Dr. Avila, for your comment or your question? Yes. Hello, Dr.
Thank you
Avila. Good
so much,
afternoon.
Samantha. Thank you so much, Samantha. And
You're
I
welcome.
really enjoyed this conversation and wish to thank the panelists for taking us through. With your permission, of course, I'm going to call my supervisor, Christine, for the first time. So this question is directed at Christine. And my question is, you did mention that this matter can be resolved probably at recruitment stage, or the issue starts at recruitment stage. So my question is, how do you pick the humanity in a candidate at this stage? Because half the time we only discover this, what shall I say, maybe in quotes, animals, when they are in this, when they are in the system and they've started frustrating us, and all the pieces are broken. So the question is, how do you pick the humanity in a candidate at recruitment stage? I thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not picking the humanity, it is acting as a human. Because when you decide to employ, you have got a vacancy. And what are you looking for? You are looking for certain capabilities, certain skills, certain attitudes, which you believe that when this individual comes who claims to have what that job will expect or how it will be done, you are believing that that person you are bringing in has been nicely chosen through the interview processes, until finally you give the appointment letter, you take them through the induction processes and all that. You are believing and trusting that that person will do what you have employed them to do. You are not the one that should begin to think on his behalf. If you begin to do that and micromanaging him, the best thing would have been you yourself to do the work, or employ a dummy, which you can easily tell, do this and it will do it, do this and do it. I've usually told my students when I'm teaching human resource management that you will never see capabilities coming wobbling down through your doors for interviews. You will never see skills wobbling coming through your door. What you are going to see is a human being. That human being is the one in whom those skills, capabilities, attitudes are found. Your role at recruitment is to trust that you have done a good job, and you do a good job by bringing a person you know, think. Because if he gets stranded because his qualifications probably did not do a good job, he needs to use his initiative. That's why we're talking about initiative, innovation, and things like that. If he cannot do that, it's not you to do that, then you didn't do a good job. Take him for training if he needs to go for training, and that should be training that should be able to help him, not training for the sake of just training, which also makes the person inhumane, because that's what we try to do. So we need to be very careful at recruitment process. When we employ, we need to trust the people we have employed to do the job. If we begin to do the job of that employee, then we did a good job at recruitment, because your role now is not to dehumanize that person because you didn't do a good job yourself. I think that is actually wrong. And you know, I hate a situation where I begin to tell them, oh, no, you do this. Yes, I can mentor. There's what is known as mentoring and there's what is known as coaching. But when you take over the roles of that individual because you think you can do the job better, I don't think that is true. I remember working in an organization, I did a report, and every time it went to my manager, it came back and she kept on saying, if I were you, I wouldn't have used this word. If I were you, I wouldn't have used this word. And I told her, you are not me. I am an individual. You see, the thesaurus has got so many words probably for one word. So if you choose to use this word, it doesn't mean that what I've written here is wrong. So if I were you thing is not a good thing, because we're both human beings. Allow me to think, allow me to do what I need to do. So my student Avila, be careful. Who are you recruiting? Have you done a good job? If you don't do a good job, don't dehumanize them because you have not done what you needed to have done.
I take the hiring process one step further. The team of the people that this person, the candidate, is going to work with, they are the critical people to choose that person, not just for chemistry, but they ask the tough questions. They know and they can read between the lines, is this a fit? not just in competencies, but who this person is and what are their values. And it's very interesting what happens when you allow that the frontline people or that team to be the critical people to choose the candidate. Not HR, not the management.
Yeah, that was actually a really good process where, you know, where I worked at BCG in the past, because, you know, we had a central corporate HR department, but HR was mostly about benefits and things like that, right? The centralized policies, basically. And then we had, like, I was doing the hiring for several different departments. However, I would always include people from those departments because I didn't know enough about that. You know, I could not know all the details of this department. So, and we didn't call it department, but it doesn't really matter, right? I had an overall idea of what they were doing because I was also in charge of managing them, for lack of a better word right now. But you know, but that was a natural part of the process, and it's so important. I would never have been able to choose the right person. I wouldn't. Yeah. And then I think, you know, just also to get back to the box as a final statement from me is like, we were just never meant to fit into a box. So it's not just about, we always hear about think outside the box. No, it's not about thinking outside the box. It's about throwing the entire box out together, all together, right? And really, and I also heard again from Christine, yes, yeah, I have the right to be myself. And I think it was Oscar Wilde who said, be yourself because everyone else is already taken, right? I think it was Oscar Wilde. So.
Yes, Ms.
And we have another question, I think.
Yes, however, I'm not sure if we are going to be able to address the following statements. However, I did take note of it, and we'll probably try to incorporate it to the following sessions. I am also very sorry to the other people that have their hands raised, but we are already 8 minutes over time. So before I pass it on to Ms. Titi to formally close our session for today, I'd like to thank our panelists once more, Ms. Regina, Mr. Patrick, and Dr. Christine. We appreciated your participation in this session very, very much. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all our current and our future viewers who will be rewatching this for sure, that we've gained a deeper understanding of the theme. And I think all of our discussions today brings us back to the basic notion that everybody is just a human being and they would be happy in an organization or in society as long as they're well compensated and they're mentored or they're challenged and their curiosity is engaged, like you guys said, that they're involved, appreciated, trusted, I believe we said also, and empowered is also there for today. So again, thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Patrick, before I thank our audience.
Samantha, I want to thank you. You're so professional and good, and you create a comfortable environment for conversation. So thank you.
Very true.
I'm very flattered. Thank you.
You're excellent at summarizing it all. So you get to the point and really can only echo that.
We see that we're practicing what you guys have been discussing. I appreciate the appreciation, panelists. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again in all the upcoming events. And that being said, I also thank our viewers, of course, in this Zoom classroom, the participants. The engagement today was great. Our viewers on FB as well, or on FB Live. And we hope to have you join us again very, very soon, specifically the upcoming COLD 2021 virtual conference, which will take place on July 30 to 31, 2021, which is tomorrow and the day after. It's at 3 p.m. CAT time exactly. Mr. Patrick, Dr. Christine, Dr. Justine, myself, and many others. I hope Ms. Regina is also joining us there. They will all be participating in this event, and the information to be gained in the next 2 days will be beyond measure. So to know more about it, you can either register and visit our COLD or OLD NTV page. And we truly hope to see all of you there. This is Samantha Nadine Abudasala signing off for now and wishing everyone a good day, and please stay safe. Ms. Titi, formally close us for today, please. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Titi lost her connection. Can I ask Dr. Goba Avila, can you please give us the word of thanks? I will ask you as a colleague there. You are the only one I can ask to do that for now. Dr. Goba. Or Mompati. Kadi.
Okay, thank you. Just want to take this time to thank Samantha. Samantha, you did a very wonderful job. It was really heart-opening for people to participate. You did not close anyone out. And we want to thank also those who were watching on Facebook. These videos are recorded and they'll be there on the page. So you can always come back and watch. We want to also thank in a special way our speakers for such an insightful and informative session. Until we meet again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone. Evening, night.
Yeah, make it a beautiful one.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, Samantha.
Sorry, Dr. Justin, for letting you down. I was trying to move around my gadget, so I couldn't, speak when you asked me to. I'm sorry about that.
No problem, no problem, no problem. Thank you so much for being here. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good night. Let's connect again in our next editions. Thank you.
Thank
you so much. Bye, bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.